Here we are, week 5 of Crescendo is officially passed, and tonight we take a look at 4 hot topics in the community as a whole as we get into the last week of the regular season and continue our postseason events with DCMPs here in week 6. We'll break down current game meta from week 5 and how it might correlate into DCMP week this week, a discussion related to Swerve Drive, alliance selection length, and the possibility of a universal point system. All of this and more coming up on this edition of FRC Roundup.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. AndyMark is your one-stop shop for all your robotics competition needs. Celebrating 20 years of quality robotics parts and superior service, AndyMark employees have over 200 years of first-team experience. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for high-quality and affordable solutions. Support Fun's content creators when you sign up for a membership on YouTube Join. You'll get access to special perks like emotes, loyalty badges, and Fun members will even get early access to our scheduled videos and more. 100% of this revenue will go back to our correspondents to help recognize their efforts. Click the Join button in any YouTube video to pledge your support.
Welcome to the show. If you've not caught our show previously, FRC Roundup is where we take a look at important topics currently happening in FRC, highlight some discussion points about events that may have happened, strategy, or really anything that correlates with FRC. If you, the Fun community, think that there's a topic that we should discuss on FRC Roundup, please feel free to ping me on the Fun Discord, and I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Nick Mathis, and I am currently in the 1st in Michigan region and a mechanical mentor on Team 33, the Killer Bees.
And I'm Connor McBride, mentor for Team 166 Chop Shop and an MC and game announcer in the New England District.
And I'm James Osterhaus, an alum of Team 107 Robotics, a robotics student at the University of Michigan and an FTAA in the FIM District.
Yeah, thanks, James, for joining the show. He filled in for me the last couple of weeks, did a great job, and we're excited to have him back on tonight. So jumping into our first topic of the night, we're going to be taking a look into the Crescendo meta and game strategy breakdown. Has been the same topic that we've had for the past couple of weeks, and it's important to continue to highlight that moving into this week. We each have selected a match that we're going to review and break down and what we like about it. But I really wanted to start this discussion off with, we've gotten to the point now. We've gotten through 5 weeks of competition. We have a lot of, a good amount of regionals happening this weekend, but we're really seeing, every district that's left getting into their, district championships this weekend. And we're really seeing Crescendo continue to evolve and maybe get the first look this weekend of what it's going to look like at a championship level. So I guess, James or Connor, we can start with either of you, but how do you think, from what you guys have seen, I know we've all watched a lot of matches together, where do you see this game really evolving into DCMPs and, past that point? And do we get that championship preview this weekend?
Well, I think the real big difference this weekend is going to be that third robot on a playoff alliance and how different that's going to be at the higher level. Because previously with passing, with 2468 and 3005 in Texas, we saw them being the passing and the receiving robot. Once we get to this high enough level that only one of those robots is the passing robot, and you have that third robot be the receiving robot, and it allows a really high level team, like say Team 27 Rush, to be cycling. Or Team 2075 Enigma to be cycling at the Michigan State Championship this weekend. I think that's going to make for some really high-level hybrid play between that passing and cycling that we've seen so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Connor, I know that you guys are, at least from our couple discussions that we've had, New England hasn't seen a ton of passing, but there has been some of it. You competed this past weekend. What did you guys utilize as some of those strategies, and where do you see that develop into DCMP this weekend?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of a little bit of a lead into the match that I wanted to highlight. So it's just kind of highlighting UNH match number 65. Normally we highlight like finals matches or any kind of playoff matches, but I highlighted this because these are 3 teams that you would, typically see at the New England District Championship. A little bit of a side note, 63-24 should absolutely be going to district champs. They're missing it out on literally by 1 point, and it absolutely kills me that they're not going to be there. Yeah, there's a tiebreaker for by 5 ways for 49 points, and they were at the bottom of it.
That's brutal.
So they should be going. But what you see here is the alliance of 63-24 Blue Devils, 58-13 Morpheus, and 166 Chop Shop. So the strategy here, Morpheus runs a 5-game piece auto. Chop Shop does a 2-piece from the side, and then Blue Devils does a shoot and stay. We had Blue Devils do a shoot and stay just so that they didn't run into Morpheus during their 5-piece. As we've seen way too many robots running an auto from there and get bumped by an alliance partner, and the whole thing just gets thrown off. So I think that that at least that second pick during auto is probably just shooting their preload, and they're going to stay there. Or there might be some times where that second pick, depending upon whatever the firepower of the alliance is just going to be pushed all the way off to the source side and just say, hey, we just want you to sit here, and then you can go dump your note or whatever. But all three robots here were cycler robots. We could all do the amp and the speaker. Only Morpheus and us could climb, but Morpheus could do a trap. So the strategy here was for us and Morpheus to cycle. We were going to flex between amp and speaker, while Morpheus was exclusively speaker. And then Blue Devils was also flexing, but more so dedicated to the amp. So at one point, right around maybe like 10 seconds later in the match or so, actually right here, 5813 shuttles a no over to the blue side of the field. That is strictly so that 6324 doesn't have to cross to the other side of the field, as Morpheus and Chop Shop are already down there at the source. So we've talked about this on other episodes before, where having three robots down at the source can be really kind of difficult. So that shuttling note that's all that was for. It's the only one that happens during the match. And it was just so that we don't clog up that area. One of the things that we did talk about was having one of the three robots be exclusively a shuttler, while one robot is playing cleanup and one robot is running cycles. Still only keeping two robots down by the source at a time, and still having a constant stream of notes down by our Blue Alliance side of the field to keep the score keep going. It was the highest scoring qual match of the event, and it spoke volumes to how well the three teams were able to work with each other.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Connor. Jumping into the match that I had taken over, I know that James and I both have matches from Michigan this weekend. I'm going to take a look at Finals 2 from the Macomb Community College event, and this is going to kind of lead into where I think the game is really going to develop this weekend. As you can see when we get through here, Blue is narrowly out of auto, and throughout the match, 31-75 and 54-60. Arguably two teams that are probably top 10 to 15 in Michigan right now. 54-60 had a rough first event, really came back this weekend after competing in Canada, and did a really good job of bouncing back in Michigan this weekend. But they do a really good job of maintaining lanes and flow throughout the game. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, not undervalued, but isn't on the surface, is that flow is so important between your alliances throughout this game, and arguably more than, at least from what I've seen throughout it. We're going to get a shift here that's at about 1 minute and 25 seconds left in the match. And this is where the big difference really comes in. And it's really due to the Red Alliance getting the absolute steal of the tournament on Alliance 4. Looking at some of the public data for this event that I was able to find through scout radios and various teams that I know that were there, 7762, the autopilots, was on, if not in the top 10, the top 15 for a lot of those teams. And they fell all the way to the third robot of the fourth alliance. And they did a really good job between all the robots maintaining flow and continuing to go through that. I thought both alliances in general did a really good job of capitalizing their amplification cycles, with the them tying on the amplification cycles, but Red just overall scoring more notes in general. But I think the big difference that we're going to see here moving into this weekend is really the complex autonomous modes and getting them to correlate with your partners. At least from 33, we're developing a ton of autonomous modes that, might not score the 5 or might not score the 5 or the 4 pieces, but might only score 3, but, are trying to get to the center line as quick as possible and stuff like that. And I think we're going to see a lot of those teams specifically pivot towards that and really ensuring, how quick can we get to the center line? There's been jokes in Discord about, in general, like, there's teams going to be on Thursday of practice day at MSC with stopwatches sitting there waiting and clocking teams and when they're getting to the notes. And it's just going to be the reality of what we're going to be dealing with moving forward. The higher and higher level of competitiveness that we're going to get, into this weekend and into the championship and the championship playoff matches and into Einstein is, it's going to be like 2015, in my opinion. If you miss, 1 or 2 notes in auto, it's going to absolutely kill your alliance on trying to win the match. So I think that was the big, again, the big difference in Finals 2 really was Alliance 4 getting that third robot of a steel of the autopilots, hats off to them. They were performed very well throughout the weekend, and I was, crazy to see that they fell all the way to Alliance 4. But, I think going into this weekend, that's really how we're going to see the game evolve. Priority on autonomous modes, flow being established very well, and then how can you utilize passing into that, and what's that going to look like?
I just want to kind of add something real quick to that. So we've talked about those center line notes being super important. Do we think that this is the new can race?
100%. Yeah,
For sure.
I totally agree. It's just going to be like 2015, because I think you're going to get to the point where at the top level, your 1 and 2 seeded alliances, especially at champs, are going to be like maybe a piece or two difference between the two robots. Maybe I'm wrong. If High Tide keeps shooting the way they're shooting, they're going to be scoring 5 more pieces than everybody else from the wing line. But, in general, like I think that gap is going to be relatively small, and the difference is going to be auto. The difference where I think, like in terms of the 15 game, like if you missed the cans, you were literally just capped. Like you could only score a certain amount of points because you didn't have the can. Where in this game, you can kind of catch up with it if you play your amplification cycles right. So I think that provides a unique opportunity. In general, like I know we had a discussion last week about the overall, the overall construction of the amp, but I love the actual strategy behind the amp in general.
Yep.
I think it's a really interesting piece on how they correlated it into the game. And, goes to show, like, if you're going up against Alliance that is going to overpower you, and that going in, you just have to make sure that you literally do not score in the speaker unless it's amplified, and really prioritize having a robot that's strictly running that. So I'll be curious to see. But yeah, I think so, Connor. I think it's pretty close to the can race. But I don't want to cut James off anymore. I'm excited to hear what happened in Kentwood Finals 3. So James, we'll throw it to you.
Absolutely. Let's hop into that match. And I think it kind of echoes that story of scoring amplified notes is what wins you the match, especially in teleop. This event was really fun to watch at Kentwood. The number 1 seed, highlighted by 2075 Enigma and 2054 Tech Fikes, was really high powered and really a lot of speed. And that kind of what you talked about with Auton compatibility, I think is a little bit what we saw with Enigma running that source side auto, and Tech Fikes with their pretty consistent 4-piece on the amp side. What I really liked about this match was as we got into teleop, Tech Fikes would pass to their second robot, 8285. I believe that's the Bionic Bulldogs. And they were actually the cleanup robot that last pick of the draft in Kentwood, while Enigma was able to cycle and do amps pretty effectively. And then whenever they were about to amplify, Tech Fikes would stop passing, would actually come and do a speaker cycle themselves. So they'd get about 3 to 4 speaker cycles or amplified speakers. Amplified notes, in each amplified cycle. And that was pretty impressive from them. And Alliance 4 was just simply super speedy. 6081 Digital Dislocators has got to be one of the fastest robots in FIM. They just are zipping around the field and really outracing the number 1 Alliance and keeping it really close. And as we got towards the end of the match, it was neck and neck the entire time. The difference maker was 2 traps from 2054 and 2075. And I think that trap, while it helps in qualification, we'll be interested to see how that impacts teams at the DCMP and championship level.
Sure.
I think about like 2056 OP Robotics. They can trap right now. Will that hurt them down the line? I'm not sure. Or will they be able to make up for it with their just insane Auton and teleop play? We'll see what happens. So,
yeah, for sure. Thanks for that, James. Tyler, you had something you wanted to add?
More just actually a question for you guys. At the Las Vegas Regional this week, we had people that were manually scoring amp scores. So did you guys see that at your events at all? And then on top of that, if a note got stuck in the amp, a field volunteer was there to unclog it right away. Was that something, any changes that you saw at your districts at all in regards to that?
I didn't specifically see anything from the couple that I watched, but I've heard of that. I know that there's at least been some direction down from first that, with the issues that we've seen at the amp. And, like I said, we talked about this, a lot last week, but, I have concerns with the human counter and how exactly accurate that's going to be because of the timing of the amplification and obviously it being time-based and what that looks like. And, so there's definitely some concerns that I have about that. I appreciate that they're trying to do something to remedy the issue, but I haven't personally seen anything like that. And I hope that, in general, moving into this weekend, that a lot of those are at least, whiffed out. But Connor or James, did you guys see anything of that sort?
Not a lot in New England. Like I know it exists. I know that HQ has done that as kind of like a Band-Aid for events if an amp stops working properly throughout the event and they can't go and fix it. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened at least a few times at the event that I was at this weekend. I was just way too dialed into to the 166 match strategy, but yeah.
Similarly, I didn't see it in person at any events this weekend, but I did hear about it happening across Michigan a little bit and across the rest of First, and I think that is a good change. I know last weekend, volunteering at West Michigan, we did have a couple replays where an amp or a amplified note wouldn't be counted or something like that into the amp, and it's really hard to determine after the match how it's match affecting because you don't know how the amplified cycle would have been used. So I'm really happy that First made that change, and hopefully that's effective this weekend at DCMP.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, before we go ahead and jump into our next topic, we'll go ahead and bring Tyler on to introduce our first giveaway for the night from the Thrifty Bot.
Yeah, our friends at Thrifty Bot are giving away a $50 Thrifty Bot gift card. So one of the great things you could get with that could be their super popular 4-inch solid urethane wheels. So there are so many robots I've talked to this year on Behind the Bumper that are utilizing these. So if you're interested in winning that $50 gift card to the Thrifty Bot, type in urethane. I had no clue that's how urethane was spelled, but urethane, that's how you spell it. Type it in chat right now. And don't forget, if you are a YouTube subscriber, you get an extra 3 times luck to win. It's absolutely free to do. Just click that subscribe button to stay up to date on all First Updates Now content.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler, and thanks to our friends from the Thrifty Bot. So jumping into our second topic of the night, inspired by a Chief Delphi thread that came about a week ago, and it's the title is Swerve Drive to Homogenize. Swerve Drive offers a huge advantage, but when every team was using Swerve Drive, the whole competition became somehow tedious. I don't know if everyone thinks like that, but I hope that the field next year should offer more obstacles to bring more challenging games to teams. This brings up an interesting topic because last week we also did get that FRC blog post from the FRC engineering team related to damage that they're seeing across the field and, robot on robot impact. That is, we're seeing an increase of that. And they had mentioned, it's due to a few things, obviously more powerful motors that we have introducing, the Neo Vortex, the Kraken X60 that we're seeing introduced into the FRC ecosystem. But I think it's also a development of the game design in general. And I think this brings up an interesting discussion point. I'd be interested to see, chat, feel free to let us know what you guys think, but James and Connor as well. Do we see first, because I'm, if you're not familiar with it, next year's game is pretty much probably already designed from a first perspective. They have to do a lot of lead time stuff and stuff like that. So more than likely, majority of it is already done. Is this a scenario where we might see first kind of go back and rethink a couple things about the game and try and, adjust to, maybe not make it completely open field. Maybe there's some, obstacles or something like that can decrease that overall speed or robot on robot impact? Or are we going to see first put, a feet per second cap on robots or a power cap? I'd be curious to see what you guys think overall. James, let's start with you. What do you think first is going to do with what we're seeing with Swerve Drive, field damage? I know it's kind of a lot that I threw at you, but, where do we see first? Do they address it from a field standpoint and a game design, or do you see them, putting a cap on, robot speed, say?
Well, I think about what First cares about, and they really want the spectacle, right? That's why Champs is such a big deal. They want it to be fast. They want there to be really exciting to watch for the spectators, to get people really excited about First. And I think at the end of the day, First likes speed because of that. They just need to figure out how to handle it. I think that's where game design comes in. I think they got to be more careful with open field and stuff like that. We need to work on field perimeter and the driver station walls to make sure there's not injuries, that kind of stuff. Like we talked about last time I was on. I don't think First will introduce necessarily a speed limit, but I think they will look into how they can design the games better to not have such acceleration times where you can have two robots that start on opposite ends of the field and collide with each other. As much fun as that can be to watch, it's not really fun when you have to repair a bent frame 3 times in one competition. For sure. So I think that's where First will target for change. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. I think it's going to be kind of hard to enforce a speed limit, and that's something that I've been thinking about for quite a bit. And it's like, all right, what you could probably do is that during per robot inspection, you have to bring your robot to the field, throw it down on one end of the field, just have it just go full court, and if it hits a threshold or each field gets packed with a radar gun and see what it looks like at max speed. But you could do that, but then it's a little bit more of an honor system in that point, because then you could purposely just nerf your speed and in code or do something to be able to just increase your speed during your matches. And I think the easiest thing that potentially could be added, and I know Nick, you kind of brought up to this of where the game is mostly done. That is true. The game is pretty much mostly done based off of what FRC has described in like these 2-year cycles of a game. But I think probably like the easiest thing that they could do, if it's yet again another like open field, those little speed bumps from
cable
like
protectors.
the cable protectors, or
even the steel ones. Yep.
Yeah, from like infinite recharge around the generator and stuff. Like having those like to divide the field into 3 or 4 different sections, that could mean everything to slowing a robot down. I think you'll still get fast speeds of robots using swerve guards to be able to get themselves over those, but you have to slow down to an extent, because you're going to be absolutely wrecking your modules and whatever you're putting down low at the bottom of your robot.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to be an unpopular opinion, maybe not. I don't think they should do anything. And here's my point on it. Because in general, I would say that, and granted, maybe my exposure is my exposure to some of the issues seen has been niche. I personally just think that this is a good opportunity for teams to review on how they're designing their chassis. Maybe it's a way where you can look into different load pathing and how, from an impact, how does load travel through my frame, right? How do I have it braced, stuff like that. One of the things, and I know that this is a niche case, and I would say that 33 is, every team might not have that specific, the engineer resources and stuff like that. So I know that's not so realistic, but one of the things that we looked at was we saw the game, we're like, okay, there's going to be a ton of high-speed impacts. How do we ensure that from an impact, that the load that is seen from the impact travels through the frame of the robot and does not completely hone in on one frame row where we're seeing those specific bends and those specific cracks? So overall, I think in general, I'm not a huge fan of a power limit. I'm not a huge fan of a speed limit. But I think FRC can do themselves assistance with some game design. I know that it's been really highlighted, I guess, is what I'll say, for the past 2 years because of the nature of the game, right? 2023, we had long full field cycles. 2024, similar thing. But then we look at games like 2019, where you were on your own side of the field and there was hardly any impact. Or we look back to 2018, where same thing, you did like a 3/4 of a cycle if you were going to the scale or the switch. So I'll be curious to see what they do. I definitely think in general, teams should be able to rely on the field design and the fact that we really can't right now. I know that from a lot of driver station impacts, we're seeing the field break in various scenarios. That obviously can't be done. But I think in general, I'd be curious to see what they're going to do. I think it's important that the team at FRC is looking into it and trying to find ways that's going to best suit the teams. I'll give Colin props. The past couple big changes that have been made, the kit bot, among other things, Colin has done a great job from a team perspective standpoint and what is best for the team. So I trust that, the team, Colin and his team and the community members that they're going to pull on how to solve the problem, they'll handle it well. So that's what I have on the topic for that. But, Connor, I guess anything past that point? I know I kind of took a different turn than what you guys stated, but.
When you said that it was an unpopular opinion, I think you'd be right. I think there needs to be something to add on to it. I mean,
sure.
I understand like the fields could potentially be built more robust, but then again, remember that FRC is a nonprofit, and
sure,
there's not a whole lot of money that's going through to be able to replace all those fields. I mean,
I get that.
They have 40 to 50 different fields. It's
a lot.
That's a lot.
I don't know the exact number, but I know it's a lot.
That's a lot to be able to replace. So
yeah, and I also recognize in general, I don't want teams breaking their robots. So if it means that we can turn the speed limit down to okay, you can go no faster than 18 feet a second. If that means that we're keeping all the teams utilizing the kit bot and the kit chassis together, then I'm all for it, right? I don't want, we had a couple of competitions this year where there's teams that are getting hit on, one of those fast impacts, and their frame is crumbling, or they have a specific, like 9312 in Michigan. I would consider them a relatively like up and coming elite team that's going to be there in the next couple of years. We're really good in FTC, transition to FRC. They took a full on head hit from 3175, and the entire top half of their shooter snapped off. I don't entirely know how to solve that, other than, we look at a speed or a power standpoint. So if it means that we can keep robots together, robots moving, I'm all for it from that standpoint. I just, nothing is worse than when teams put all of this time and all of this effort and they go out there and they break 3 matches because of an impact. And it's like, man, we spent hundreds of hours on this robot and we finally get to a real field and a real competition, and then it snaps, and it's like, great, now we have to spend all this time fixing it. So from that standpoint, I agree with you, Connor. And I think, the more and more that I'm thinking about it now, you're probably right. There probably should be something that's done. I don't know exactly what the answer is, and I'm curious to see what they have. So
I do have one more thing pulling from chat. So Julia M says, I wonder if they'll decrease the max weight, robot weight, to lower the force of impacts at high speed.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be another way that they could do it. Reduce the overall, momentum and inertia. Yeah, I could see that. That'd be interesting. Thanks for putting that in chat. That's an interesting way to look at it. But okay. Well, before we go and jump into our next topic, we'll go ahead and bring Tyler on to draw for that giveaway and hear more from our friends at AndyMark.
Yeah, guys, I don't know if you're seeing a live poll right now, by the way, but Chad is saying right now there shouldn't be a way to limit speed.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Maybe it's not unpopular, Connor.
You never know, right? So, but we'll leave that poll open for a little bit to see where chat's thinking, at least, and get that. But yeah, once again, we're giving away a $50 gift card from our friends at the Thrifty Bot. Urethane was the keyword for that. If you do win, please go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner. That's where you're going to draw it. And hey, Brandon McDonald, congratulations. You are taking home that $50 Thrifty Bot gift card. So please go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner in order to claim. And thanks again to the Thrifty Bot for the awesome giveaway as well, too. We got another one coming up, actually from our friends at AndyMark. But before we do that, let's learn a little bit more about AndyMark and their impact in FIRST and FRC. We'd like to thank AndyMark and AndyMark.com for their continued support of fun content. AndyMark.com is your one-stop shop for all your competition robotics needs. Featuring over 200 years of combined experience, AndyMark has now been in business for 20 years, servicing FIRST teams and beyond. From electrical and mechanical, anything you may need, go to AndyMark.com to see how they can help your team and to get some of the best quality parts and the superior service that your team deserves.
Awesome. Thanks again from our friends at AndyMark. We'll go ahead and jump into topic 3 regarding alliance selection length, and my co-host Connor is going to be leading us on this one.
Yeah, so alliance selection length. This is a very interesting topic right now, given we had 2 events this past weekend that had some pretty long ones. One of them being the event that I was at, the UNH event. Where do we start? I was on the phone with my alliance selection representative for about 50 minutes. To put it into perspective, I call them when the MC starts talking, and I hang up when we get our last pick on our alliance. A lot of this, we've talked about this for years, and this has brought up a lot of time on this show about how is there a way to be able to make alliance selection move faster? Whether if that's, getting rid of phones, everyone has to have like a strategy board, bring them down with them, or like NFL draft selection where they have a shot clock and they have to go submit a name. I just want to talk a little bit about this alliance selection. The number 1 seed of 5422 Storm Gears, they had 4 declines on them. The number 2, 3, 4, and 5 seed. And we ended up going to join them. A lot of people thought it was just going to be the number. It was just going to be the number 2 and the number 4 seed. But things got really shaken up, and I kind of understand why this alliance selection ran late. A lot of teams did not. I see 5422 people in chat, so I don't want to be mean to you guys, but a lot of teams did get burned in this. So a lot of teams just didn't have a whole lot of people to go, and there weren't a lot of robots left to really get picked that people thought would be able to form an alliance and go and win this event. So after we go and accept from the number 1 seed, 58-13 probably spends the next 15 to 20 minutes waiting for their pick. And it's well within the rules, and rightfully so. They do have that ability to be able to take their time and make that pick. But I think that's a pretty aggressive amount of time to be able to go and make a pick. I want to hand this over to you, James. What do you think? Is this too much? Could we potentially what are some ways to speed this up?
I think there's got to be another way. If you're 58-13, I respect the decision decline, but you also got to plan for that, right? Like, going into the alliance selection that you're going to decline. And sure, maybe their next teams on their pick list was 133, 45-46, and 45-64. But somebody else is next on that pick list too, which is why I think that some kind of shot clock is appropriate. We talked about this after Worlds last year too. There was a lot. I remember on our field, there was a lot of times. We talked about the Worlds in 2022. It seems like that there could be time shaven off in the line selection process. I know it's a stressful time. I've been the student out on the field before that's out there, and it is stressful, and we don't want to put more stress on those students. But I think it's up to the teams to prepare their students well out there so that they can make those picks in an effective time. Mm-hmm. I think it's just absurd to take 15 minutes. That's too long.
Sure. Yeah, I think, Connor, we've talked about this on our show before. And one of the things that I really like that Tyler had actually brought up is doing the draft like the NFL draft. Like, allow students to be sitting with their mentors, whether it's off the field or something like that. I think that could be a way that could speed things up a lot. Because ultimately, it's not a secret. We're putting, one student that's going to be a representative from each team in a very high stress scenario that may or may break their season depending on the decision that they make. So I respect the fact of, allowing students to have as much time as they need and whatnot. But like James, you said, there's got to be a reasonable amount of time that we're expecting from this. And I think if we, move the format from what we have now for students to be, maybe it's the scouting team and they're together instead of one student representative trying to communicate. Like, for example, James, I know, and Tyler, too, like Michigan State's this weekend, there is no cell service the minute you walk into the arena.
Oh, no.
So if you want to try and get any remote access to, like, if you have a scouting sheet and you're trying to use it on a laptop or a phone, like, you need to download that to your computer because you're not going to have any live access to that. And that makes things incredibly difficult. We're putting all of our, goodwill into this one student, and it's a lot of stress on them. So I think if we were able to remove them from the field, let them correlate, even if it's like, okay, there's 3 students and their scouting team that's going to do it. It takes the stress off of them. Collective collaboration oftentimes speeds up things. And I think that's one thing that we can look at it in general too. So I'd be curious to, I know Tyler, you said that Vegas took a while this weekend too. What are we looking at, Tyler? What do you think in terms of, I know the NFL draft came up again. We talked about that or something similar to that. You go to a lot of events. I don't know how Bennett's dragged down, but what do you think could be a possible solution?
Well, I think first off is identifying what is the problem, right? The problem is that these are taking too long. And I think the second thing is that the game has changed in the last 15 to 20 years than what it used to be. You go back 15 years, it made a lot of sense to have students on the field doing what they did because you didn't have cell phones. You had, people with the pick list making it. Now, here's the thing, Connor. I'll just kind of rebut your comment just a little bit. Is that if we just go to saying no phones or anything like that, you're just going to go to whiteboards anyways and just hold it up and let the teams pick. So to me, that doesn't really solve the time issue, at least on that. So at Las Vegas, we had quite a few delays in regards to the alliance selection. The number 8 alliance got pulled up last minute, so we expect that to be delayed, but we had a few other delays as well too. So I'm just going to tell you the way I handled it in regards to trying to make it seem like it was a smooth transition because what happens a lot of times is as an MC, you say, hey, are you ready for your pick? And they go, no. And then nothing happens. And then the DJ starts playing Jeopardy music or some other crap on there to try to fill time. And the way that I tried to at least handle it was saying, hey, you know what? This team's going to take a little bit. We'll be back in a few minutes with your next pick or something like that and try to make it more like a natural transition out. Because I think that's part of it right now. It's the way that us as MCs that we're handling it. It's just so abrupt all the time. And then what I did during the break, if I don't know if you can watch the webcast or archive it anywhere, probably not. I literally was going to the other teams and say, hey, how you feeling? Where you at? Let me know if you're not ready. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. If you're not, don't worry about it, take your time, we'll move on. So I think that's one way to handle what we currently have. But then the second thing of the NFL draft thing is that I think having some sort of clock where you have that group, as you guys mentioned, of people somewhere, and just having a representative walk up with a piece of paper that's got the team number in it, I think that's a very low pressure way. I think that gives an opportunity for teams to be together. I don't really see the whole point of doing the alliance selection the way it was is because it's part of the show, right? And and once again, the show was written 25 years ago for things, and that needs to be updated. And unfortunately, that's a decision that's past our decision-making abilities as MCs. That's partially people in the game design. That's partially Blair's decision as well too. That needs to change. What it needs to change to exactly, I'm not sure. My suggestion was more the NFL draft style for things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that could be a good way to go about it. I'll be NFL draft moment. Side note, it's in Detroit. I'll be there. But I'll be curious to see what that looks like. But like you said, Connor, or like you said, Tyler, it's been 25 years. Maybe it's time for a change. But I'll be curious to see if anything comes out of it and what first looks from that standpoint. But before we go ahead into our final topic of the night, we'll go ahead and bring Tyler on to introduce our second giveaway of the night from AndyMark.
Yeah, so our friends at AndyMark are giving away, they're also doing a $50 gift card for andymark.com. So the keyword is going to be ship the pit. So type that in chat right now, because if you're going to championships, you're going to have an opportunity to do your ship the pit orders as well too. So make sure you look out for that as well. They're also giving away, if you're watching this live, Eclipse for the Eclipse as well too on their website. So go to andymark.com, learn more about it. But type in ship the pit for your opportunity to win that $50 gift card. And don't forget, YouTube subscribers, it's absolutely free to do, get 3 times luck to win. So thanks again, AndyMark, for the awesome giveaway.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. The Eclipse thing is cool. I didn't even notice that. I was on the AndyMark website earlier. I noticed that. But that'll be fun Monday after the weekend. Michigan's pretty close to the path totality, so I'm try and make it out there. But so topic 4.
From what I've heard is that a lot of teams or a lot of schools in Indiana are taking that day off so that they can
awesome.
Go and see the eclipse. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little sliver in New Hampshire that I really want to go up, but I've taken way too much vacation time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I went senior year of high school. There was an eclipse in Kentucky, and I went, and it was like one of the coolest experiences I've ever been a part of. But side note, Connor, take us away on the last topic of the night.
Yeah, sure. So going into our fourth topic, we're going to be talking about the universal point system. So this is another topic that has been brought up over the years in the FRC community, not just on the show. This kind of stems from a Chief Delphi thread for this year, posted 8 days ago by Paul R. from 2102, qualification from California Regionals. This is getting ridiculous. So this kind of goes around for, 973 went to multiple regional events and they didn't win or get any of the culture awards or even a wild card. And for a few days, they were not going to be qualifying. They were not going to be going to the championship this year after being on Einstein, like having a 3-year in a row Einstein appearance, which is just absolutely wild. Spoiler. They ended up they did get a wild card based off of some declines or something off of the priority wait list. So if you were sad that you were going to miss out on 973, they're going to be there now. So, which is awesome. Going to hand this over to you, Nick. I know you have a lot to talk about the universal point system.
For sure. So being from Michigan, kind of the pioneers of the district system, I've talked with Jim about this, who worked, hard with FIRST and FIM and all the FIM people to get the district system, started and whatnot. And this is so long overdue. And in my opinion, the best part, everything else aside about districts, I think, it's great in general, but the best part about the district system is the advancement to the district championship and Houston. I think that the fact that we're still in this 2-team or I don't even know how many teams it is, but 2 robot teams qualifying, first pick and the alliance captain of the winning alliance, and then the culture award winners and stuff like that. The fact that we're only taking 2 teams from each regional without any wild cards trickling down and whatnot is ridiculous in my opinion, and I think really needs to be revisited. Like, the OP states, we're looking at, a team that of 973's caliber that is not going to qualify or was not going to qualify for champs even though they had a very capable robot. And there was, throughout that thread, it went down. CRESCENDO had posted a lot of interesting data comparing districts to teams in California that aren't even going to get to go, that would be in the top 20 in Michigan. And it really makes me think on FRC, really, like, in my opinion, this is one of the most important things that FRC needs to address this offseason outside of everything else going on. We're getting to a point where, we want to grow the teams, we want to do this and continue to grow the program, and not solving the regional qualification to the championship is completely detrimental to that mission, in my opinion. If the goal is to allow teams that rightfully deserve to get to the championship be there, then we need to address on how they're qualified. And as we continue throughout this, it got worse this year, right? They first went down from, I think it was 800 teams last year. We're going down to 600. It dropped down a decent amount. And without, the regionals are the ones that got shafted. Michigan gained 2 slots this year. And I know that there was an increase in teams, but, maybe we need to relook at how it works through that. And, in my opinion, one of the other things, and it got brought up in the chat as well, give FTC and FLL their own championship and allow FRC to be a larger event if that's one way you want to solve the regional qualification problem. If you've been to champs before, FRC is the staple of what the championship is. And in my opinion, the FTC and FLL aspect of it is completely shafted. I think it would be super cool for all of those FTC and FLL teams that have worked so hard to just give them their own event. I understand this goes back to what Connor said. FRC is a nonprofit. It costs a lot more money to allow FTC and FLL to have their own events, which I'm sure is probably a limiting factor. But that's one way you could solve it. A universal point system in general, you could sort of utilize, and I don't know what the answer is because you get into strength of regionals and whatnot and stuff like that. And we have that in districts too, where, a team that takes 4th at a district could win a district, up, in mid-Michigan or something like that. There might be a weaker district. So I don't know how to entirely address that, but even if it was just a district point system, right, that would solve your problem of not having a team that is 2 finalists and, what it looks like from that standpoint, and they would still qualify, right? In Michigan, you get so many district points depending on how you correlate and what that looks like. And, a team that would, get the finalist that didn't have any wild cards would still qualify for the championship. So instead of, what that looks like and trying to determine how you correlate those district points might change from district to a regional system. But I think that's one way on how you could look at it as, okay, you compete, you get a certain amount of district points or universal points or regional points, whatever you want to call it. And then, okay, the top 250 teams that have the most universal points are going to be the ones that qualify for the championship. And I know in that, the downside of that is, okay, well, then we're going to get teams that are going to, do great and still not make it. And I don't know what the entire solution is because you're always going to have issues. But I think that's, like Tyler's got FRC locks up. So, district points, you get so many points depending on what that looks like from where you compete. If you win the event, alliance advance and points, stuff like that. I think this could be implemented relatively easily into the regional system with some tweaks maybe. And this be a good way on how to, tackle the issue. But I know I've been ranting. James, I want to come to you and get your overall thoughts. I know you've been in the district system. How do you think we can address the issue of regional qualification system with a universal point system?
Well, overall, I think I'm in agreement with you, Nick. I think that if we really want to send the most deserving teams to champ, some kind of universal point system needs to be implemented. One thing that really piqued my curiosity in that whole California thread was somebody posted a picture of the super regional vision of what that would look like in FRC. And that always piqued my interest. A couple of times I've ran across that on Chief Delphi in my life. It looks like a natural progression post DCMP before champs that could be a really way to even the balance between regional and district qualification. Because right now I feel like the 82 teams that go to Worlds for Michigan are competitive. And it seems like the California teams are sending not as many competitive teams as they should be when they have such a vast amount. Like you think of teams like 5199, Robot Dolphins from Outer Space. They should be qualifying for the championships. They were number 1 seed this past weekend, but they failed to qualify. And I think that's just preposterous. I would really like to see that implemented in the offseason. Connor, what do you think?
No, I totally agree. And adding on to another team that got snubbed, 3255 Super Nerds, with that absolutely gorgeous turreted robot out of California, just super dialed in. No, I totally agree. FTC used to do a super regional system. They went away from it. I don't know as to why. I'm not too involved with FTC. I kind of want to ask Tyler this question. I know that you've been going to some of those Vex events, and they do like what are they called? They're called like premier events. Is that something similar to what we're trying to reference here? Signature events.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So signature event is kind of what like the super regionals used to be, but they take place over the course of the year instead of like being like what a DCMP is or something like that, right? So it's a little bit different. The real quick TLDR on it is it's an event that's at a higher skill level. It's a magnet event, so teams from everywhere can come in, despite having a structure like FTC does or a district does, where it's very centered. Typically, the rules are that about 50% of the teams that attend have to be like the in-state team, but then the other 50% can be from anywhere. So events that I've attended have teams from all over the country or multiple countries come in. The key with that event is that just like in FTC, where very few teams qualify for the World Championship, that event provides the winning alliance, which is only 2 teams. They qualify for the World Championships, and then so does the Excellence Award, which is like the Impact or Inspire Award, also qualifies for the World Championship. So it's a little bit different, but something that could be potentially implemented, sure.
Interesting. Yeah, so I guess one question that I want to preface with you guys, and then we'll wrap up the show. From a standpoint, I guess the way that I view like a Michigan DCMP is like a super regional. I guess that's one thing. Could you guys see first going to a standpoint of, okay, you're going to compete at regionals week 1 through 4, right? And this is just hypothetical, right? This is a lot of hypothetical, but say you compete week 1 through 4, and then you can qualify for a regional championship, which is going to be okay. And we're going to have, California, Nevada, this group of the states, and then this group of the states, and then this group of the states that would compete at a super regional or whatever you want to call it. And then from there, you could, there would be a certain amount of championship slots dependent on district points or something of how you do at the event. And then you could qualify from that. Could you guys see something like that having any validity?
I could. I guess we'll throw this little monkey wrench in there. What about states like Hawaii that is so isolated from everyone else? Or
you get into travel issues and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or what about like our international friends like Australia or Turkey or stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
James, go ahead. That's a lot harder. I think like continental US, like sure, that could definitely happen. And odds are the teams that are qualifying for it more likely than not have the funding and the abilities to be able to get to those events.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just, making sure that it's for everyone. That's kind of the big goal here. I don't know if that works out all across the board.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to hop in and say, a universal point system actually has to be universal. And I think it's easy to think about it in a US centric way, but when you incorporate the non-continental US and international teams, it becomes more tricky when you talk about other advancements besides regional district events. I think from a points perspective, you can do it, but not when we're integrating into new elements of competition structure we haven't seen before. But I think a universal point system could be implemented. I think it's something that should be explored this offseason.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, before we go ahead and wrap up the show, let's bring Tyler back on to draw for that final giveaway.
Yeah, it's for a $50 gift card, once again, from our friends at AnyMark, which you can use anything on there. If you do win, please go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner in order to claim. AnyMark will send you a email with the gift code for that as well. The winner is going to be Jeffrey Dye. Congratulations, Jeffrey. Make sure you go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner in order to claim. Thanks again to AnyMark and the Thrifty Bot for the awesome giveaways today.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning into FRC Roundup. Special thanks to all those who clicked that subscribe button or stepped up to help fund by becoming a fund member or supporter by clicking that join button. Your support really helps us continue to make great content. Don't forget, you can watch FRC Roundup archived at youtube.com/firstupdatesnow and watch live Mondays during the competition season. On behalf of our producer, Tyler Olds, my co-host, Connor and James, and all fun correspondents, I'm Nick Jr., and thanks for watching tonight. Good luck to all those teams in Week 6 of competition competing this weekend, and big thanks to our moderators in chat as well. See you next time, same day, same time, where we take a look at what is going on with First Robotics on FRC Roundup. Thanks, everyone.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. AndyMark is your one-stop shop for all your robotics competition needs. Celebrating 20 years of quality robotics parts and superior service, AndyMark employees have over 200 years of first-team experience. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for high-quality and affordable solutions.